show you how to do the tubular bind off for 1x1 rib. And this is to match the circular tubular cast on I did at the beginning of this project. This is the traveler's cowl that I designed to go with the traveler's hat. And you can see the cast on just really comes from nothing to create the really stretchy cast on edge. And then I wanted a similar effect for my bind off edge so they would match. So similarly stretchy, but the method is completely different. So to start, you can see that I have already done a section of my bind off, and you just take the yarn that you were knitting with and you cut it, but you need quite a length because you're actually going to do this bind off using just a sewing needle. So I wrapped the yarn 4 times around the circumference of the cowl to get the right length. And then there are 5 steps that you do over and over to do this this bind off. So the first step is to insert the needle knitwise into the first stitch and then pull it all the way through. Whoops. After you pull it through, you pull that stitch off. That one kind of jumped off on me. So you pull that first stitch off the needle anyway. Then you skip the next stitch. You go in purlwise in the second stitch. And leave it on. You don't want to pull any of them too tightly, but particularly that stitch. Now you're going to backtrack and come back to the first stitch on the needle and go in purlwise. And this one, you are going to then slip off the needle. Then you go to from the back, you're just going in between the first 2 stitches, pull the yarn to the front, and then knit the second stitch. Go in knitwise from the front to the back, the second stitch on your needle. And that's it. Then you repeat them. I'm going to do it together a couple more times. So the first one is knitwise. You pull it all the way through so that the yarn you're using goes on top of the yarn that you just pulled through. And then you slip that knit stitch off. Then with the yarn in the front, you go to the second stitch and go purlwise. Don't pull it too tight. And then you backtrack and you do the first stitch on the needle, purlwise. And when you're done with that one, you do push that stitch off the needle. You come around to the back and you go in between the first 2 stitches, pull it all the way through. And then in the second stitch from the needle tip, you go in knitwise from the front to the back. So we'll do that one more time. The first one is knitwise. I should tell you that all of these details are written out on the Cushion No Joy website on the post about this tubular bind off for 1x1 rib. So you now push that stitch that you just went in knitwise, you push it off, bring the yarn to the front. Second stitch, you go in purlwise. I would also note that there's a different method for binding off 2x2 rib. This is specific to the 1x1 rib. We're now going to backtrack and go purlwise through the first stitch on the needle. And then you're going to drop that one off. Come in from the back in between the first 2 stitches. And then the last step is knitwise through the second stitch on the needle. And you take the yarn from the front all the way to the back. So that's all there is to it. You just continue all the way around and it gives you this nice stretchy bind off that matches your circular tubular cast on. Happy knitting!